My husband called me lazy until I built a fortune that made his income look insignificant. I still hear his voice echoing in our kitchen. You're nothing but lazy, Callista. While I'm out there making real money, you sit around doing nothing. Thorne's words cut through me like a knife. I stood there, holding a dish towel, watching him grab his coffee mug with that smug look on his face. His expensive suit was perfectly pressed, his hair slicked back like some corporate prince. I wanted to scream that I managed our entire household, raised our kids, and kept everything running smoothly. But instead, I just stared at him, feeling smaller by the second. He didn't even look back as he walked out the door. The silence that followed felt heavier than his insults. I set down the towel and walked to the window, watching his BMW pull out of our driveway. Something inside me cracked that morning. Not just my heart, but something deeper. My spirit, maybe. I didn't know it then, but that crack would become the foundation of everything I was about to build. Later that evening, I was putting away Thorne's laundry when his phone buzzed on the dresser. The screen lit up with a message from someone named Rhea. "Can't wait to see you tonight, handsome. Our secret is safe." My hands started shaking as I read the words again. Then I saw more messages, months of them. Sweet words, promises, plans to meet. My legs gave out, and I sat on our bed, staring at the proof of his betrayal. Everything made sense now. The late nights, the sudden business trips, the way he looked right through me. While he was calling me lazy, he was busy cheating on me with his coworker. I scrolled through message after message, each one feeling like another punch to my gut. But somewhere between the pain and the anger, something else started growing. A fire I hadn't felt in years. He thought I was nothing? He was about to learn just how wrong he was. I couldn't sleep that night. Instead, I found myself in the attic, digging through old boxes. That's when I found it, my old business plan from college. Callista's Crafted Dreams, I had called it. The pages were yellow and dusty, but the ideas were still there. Handmade jewelry, custom home decor, personalized gifts. I had been so passionate about it back then before I met Thorne. Before I gave up my dreams to support his. I sat on the attic floor, reading my own words from 20 years ago. The excitement, the vision, the hope, it was all still there, waiting for me. My younger self had believed she could build something amazing. Maybe it wasn't too late. I tucked the plan under my arm and crept back downstairs. Thorne was snoring in our bed, completely unaware that his wife was about to become someone he never expected. I opened my laptop and started researching. If he wanted to see what I was really capable of, I'd show him. I started small, working at our kitchen table after everyone went to bed. I ordered supplies online, using our grocery money bit by bit. My first pieces were simple, beaded bracelets and small wooden signs with inspirational quotes. I listed them on an online marketplace, my heart pounding as I hit publish on my first listing. 3 days later, I made my first sale. $5 for a bracelet that took me an hour to make. I stared at the notification on my phone, feeling like I had just climbed Mount Everest. That $5 was mine. I had earned it with my own hands, my own creativity. I opened a separate bank account that day, one Thorne knew nothing about. Every small sale went straight into that account. Within 2 weeks, I had $50, then $100. The numbers were tiny, but they represented something huge, my independence. I worked in secret, hiding supplies in the laundry room, crafting while Thorne watched TV. He had no idea his lazy wife was building her escape plan, one bracelet at a time. A month into my secret business, I decided to do some investigating of my own. I knew Rhea worked at Thorne's office, so I looked her up on social media. She was everything I wasn't: young, glamorous, single. Her photos showed expensive restaurants and weekend getaways, places I recognized because Thorne had told me he was at business dinners and work conferences. I screenshotted everything, building my own evidence file, but instead of falling apart, I felt stronger. Every lie he had told me just fueled my determination. While he was spending our money on his affair, I was building something real. My online store was growing. I had repeat customers now, people who loved my work and left glowing reviews. One woman wrote, "These pieces are made with such love and care. You can tell the artist puts her heart into every creation." Her heart. Something Thorne had tried to break was actually making me money. I smiled as I packaged another order, knowing that each sale was taking me one step closer to freedom. Thorne started noticing changes in me, though he couldn't figure out what they were. I was happier, more confident. I stopped jumping when he criticized me. When he called me lazy now, I just smiled and nodded, knowing he had no idea what I was really doing. "You seem different lately," he said one evening, studying my face with suspicion. "Different how?" I asked innocently, not looking up from my laptop. "I don't know, more secretive." He was right, but not in the way he thought. I was secretive about my growing bank account, my expanding customer base, my plans for the future. I was secretive about the fact that his lazy wife was making more money each week. Last month, I had earned $800. This month, I was on track for $1,200. My jewelry was featured in a local boutique, and my custom signs were becoming popular for weddings and events. But I kept working at that kitchen table, pretending to be the same woman he married, the woman he thought he could control and dismiss. Little did he know, she was disappearing more every day. I needed someone to talk to, someone who would understand what I was going through. That's when I called my best friend Elowen. We met at a small cafe across town, somewhere Thorne would never go. "I have something to tell you," I said, my hands wrapped around my coffee cup. When I told her about the affair, about my business, about everything, her eyes filled with tears and then with fire. "Callista, I'm so proud of you," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "But also, I want to punch Thorne in the face." Elowen became my secret partner, helping me brainstorm new products and marketing ideas. She even bought several pieces to give as gifts, telling everyone about my amazing work without mentioning my name. "You're going to be huge," she told me one afternoon as we looked at my sales numbers. "He has no idea what's coming." She was right. My little kitchen table business was becoming something bigger, something powerful, and Thorne was completely clueless. I started keeping detailed records of everything. Not just my business income, but Thorne's behavior too. I documented his late nights, his mysterious phone calls, his sudden interest in working weekends. I saved screenshots of his texts with Rhea, printed bank statements showing his spending at restaurants I'd never been to. If this marriage was going to end, and I was starting to hope it would, I wanted to be prepared. My business was growing faster than I had ever imagined. I was making custom pieces for 3 different boutiques now, and my online store had over 200 5-star reviews. I had to rent a small storage unit to keep all my supplies and finished pieces. Every week, I transferred more money into my secret account. I was earning almost as much as Thorne now, but he had no idea. He still saw me as the same helpless housewife who depended on him for everything. That image was about to shatter in the most spectacular way possible. My secret almost came out by accident. I was rushing to send product photos to a new boutique owner when I accidentally sent them to Thorne instead of Elowen. My heart stopped when I realized my mistake. 20 minutes later, he stormed through the front door, holding his phone like a weapon. "What is this?" he demanded, showing me the photos of my jewelry. "Are you selling things behind my back?" I could have lied, made up some story about helping a friend. But I was tired of hiding. "Yes," I said simply. "I have my own business." His face turned red. "How long has this been going on? How much money are you making? Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at him calmly, remembering all the nights he came home late smelling like another woman's perfume. "I didn't tell you because it's mine. Just like your relationship with Rhea is yours." The color drained from his face. We stared at each other across our kitchen, both knowing that everything had just changed forever. The fight that followed was explosive. Thorne denied the affair, called me paranoid and crazy. Then he tried a different approach, threatening to leave me if I didn't stop this business nonsense. "You're embarrassing me," he shouted. "My wife's selling trinkets online like some desperate housewife. What will people think?" I stood there listening to him rant, feeling surprisingly calm. A year ago his threats would have terrified me. Now they felt like promises. "If you leave," I said quietly, "you'll be doing me a favor." That stopped him cold. He wasn't used to me standing up to him, wasn't prepared for me to call his bluff. For a moment, doubt crept into my mind. Was I being foolish? Was I throwing away 20 years of marriage for a small business? Then I remembered his texts with Rhea, his constant insults, the way he made me feel worthless. No, I wasn't throwing anything away. I was finally picking up the pieces of myself that he had tried to destroy. The tension at home was unbearable, but my business was thriving. I had hired 2 part-time helpers and moved my operation to a small workshop space downtown. A local entrepreneur named Cormac stopped by one afternoon, interested in featuring my work in his gallery. "You have real talent," he said, examining one of my necklaces. "Have you considered expanding into higher-end pieces?" His encouragement meant everything to me. Here was a successful businessman treating me like an equal, like someone worth investing in. That same week, I enrolled in a business finance course at the community college. I wanted to learn everything: accounting, marketing, investment strategies. Thorne laughed when he saw the textbooks. "Playing businesswoman now?" he sneered. I just smiled and kept studying. Every night after he went to bed, I pored over those books, absorbing everything I could. Knowledge was power, and I was hungry for both. The local craft fair was my first big public appearance. I set up a beautiful booth with all my best pieces, professional signs, and business cards. Thorne refused to come, saying he was too busy with real work. That was fine with me. I didn't need his support anymore. The fair was incredible. People loved my work, and I sold almost everything I brought. A reporter from the local newspaper even interviewed me for a feature on women entrepreneurs. When the article came out the following week, my phone started ringing constantly. Orders poured in from all over the state. Meanwhile, Thorne was struggling at his own job. His company was downsizing and he was worried about layoffs. He started bragging louder about his success, trying to make himself feel important. But I could see the fear in his eyes. His world was getting smaller while mine was expanding. The contrast was becoming impossible to ignore. The newspaper article changed everything. A regional magazine called, wanting to do a feature story on my journey from housewife to entrepreneur. I agreed, and the photographer came to my workshop for the shoot. Seeing my professional setup, my employees, my displays of beautiful handmade pieces, it all felt surreal. The article came out with the headline, "From Kitchen Table to Main Street, a Local Success Story." Orders exploded overnight. I had to hire more help and find a larger workspace. My monthly income was now triple what Thorne made, but I kept that information to myself. I was featured on a local morning TV show, invited to speak at women's business groups, asked to mentor other aspiring entrepreneurs. Thorne watched the TV interview with his mouth hanging open. "I had no idea," he mumbled. "No idea about what?" I asked sweetly. "About how successful you've become." Success. The word he had never associated with me before. It tasted like victory. The breaking point came at our friend's anniversary party. Thorne had been drinking, and his filter completely disappeared. In front of everyone, he started complaining about how I had changed, how I was too good for him now. Then, in a moment of pure stupidity, he announced to the whole party that he had been seeing someone else, because I was never available anymore. The room went silent. Our friends stared at him in shock. I felt humiliated, but also strangely relieved. He had just publicly admitted to cheating on me. No more hiding, no more pretending. I stood up calmly and said, "Thank you for making this easier, Thorne. I'll have my lawyer contact you tomorrow." Then I walked out with my head held high. Several friends followed me outside, offering support and expressing their disgust with Thorne's behavior. For the first time in years, I felt completely free. The truth was finally out, and I was ready for whatever came next. Instead of attacking Rhea, I decided to take a different approach. I reached out to her directly, suggesting we meet for coffee. She was nervous, probably expecting me to scream or throw a drink in her face. Instead, I was calm and curious. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. She told me everything: how Thorne had pursued her, how he complained about me constantly, how he promised to leave me soon. She seemed genuinely remorseful, especially when she learned about my business success. "He told me you were just a housewife," she said quietly. "He said you had no ambition, no skills." I showed her pictures of my workshop, my employees, my featured articles. Her eyes widened with each image. "He lied about everything," she whispered. By the end of our conversation, she was crying and apologizing. I almost felt sorry for her. She had been manipulated just like I had been. The difference was, I had found my strength. She was still waiting for Thorn to give her a life that would never come. I decided it was time for full disclosure. I invited Thorn to dinner at an upscale restaurant, my treat. He was confused but pleased, probably thinking I wanted to reconcile. Over appetizers, I pulled out a folder of financial documents. "I want to show you something," I said, sliding the papers across the table. His eyes scanned the bank statements, the profit and loss reports, the tax documents. I watched his face change as he realized what he was looking at. "This is impossible," he said. "You're making more than me?" "3 times more," I said calmly, cutting into my steak. "And it's growing every month." He stared at the numbers, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. All those months of calling me lazy, of dismissing my work, of treating me like I was worthless. The evidence was right there in black and white. I was not only successful, I was more successful than him. The power dynamic in our relationship had completely flipped, and he was just now realizing it. As the reality sank in, Thorn's attitude shifted dramatically. Suddenly, he was interested in my business, asking detailed questions about my processes and profits. "Maybe we could work together," he suggested desperately. "I could help you expand, bring my business experience to the table." I almost laughed. His business experience consisted of middle management at a company that was laying people off. Meanwhile, I had built something from nothing, created jobs, earned respect in my industry. "I don't need your help," I said simply. I never did. That's when he pulled out his last card, emotional manipulation. He started crying, talking about our history, our children, how we could work through this. But I had moved past the point of no return. I had seen what I was capable of without him dragging me down. I had tasted independence, success, respect. There was no going back to being his lazy housewife. I pulled out another set of papers and slid them across the table. Divorce papers. His tears stopped immediately. The divorce process began, and I threw myself into expanding my business even further. I launched an online course teaching jewelry-making techniques, started a subscription box service, and opened a second location. Every success felt like another step away from the woman Thorn had tried to keep me as. I started sharing my story on social media, posting about the journey from being called lazy to building a 6-figure business. The response was overwhelming. Women from all over the country reached out, sharing their own stories of being underestimated and dismissed. I became an accidental advocate for women's entrepreneurship, speaking at conferences, and writing articles about finding your worth. My follower count grew to over 50,000, and major brands started reaching out for collaborations. What had started as a way to earn grocery money had become a movement. I was no longer just successful, I was influential. And Thorn could only watch from the sidelines as his worthless wife became someone he never could have imagined. Thorn tried to turn our mutual friends against me, painting himself as the victim of a cold, ambitious wife. But the evidence was overwhelming. People had seen how he treated me, heard him call me lazy, witnessed his public admission of cheating. Most of our friends rallied around me instead. They were proud of what I had accomplished, excited to see me thriving. The few who sided with Thorn revealed their true characters, and I was happy to let them go. I was building a new circle of supporters. Other entrepreneurs, creative professionals, strong women who lifted each other up instead of tearing each other down. My business continued to grow at an incredible pace. I was featured in national magazines, invited to appear on podcasts, asked to write a book about my journey. Every interview, every article, every speaking engagement was another nail in the coffin of Thorn's narrative about me. The whole world could see what I really was, not lazy, but unstoppable. Thorn's life was falling apart while mine soared to new heights. He lost his job during the company layoffs, struggled to find new employment, and had to move into a small apartment. Meanwhile, I bought a beautiful house with a dedicated studio space, hired a full-time staff, and started planning international expansion. Rhea had broken up with him once she realized he had no money or prospects. He was alone, unemployed, and facing the reality that he had thrown away a marriage to a woman who was now worth more than he could ever dream of being. He started calling me, leaving desperate voicemails asking for help, for money, for another chance. I didn't return his calls. I had nothing left to say to the man who had spent years convincing me I was worthless. His opinion of me no longer mattered. The only opinion that mattered was my own. And I finally knew my worth. In an unexpected turn, Rhea reached out to me again. She had been doing some soul-searching after her breakup with Thorn and wanted to apologize properly. We met again, and this time she was completely honest about everything. She told me how Thorn had manipulated her, lied to her, made promises he never intended to keep. He used both of us, she said sadly. But you were smart enough to see through it and build something amazing. I found myself feeling sorry for her. She was young, naive, and had genuinely believed Thorn's lies about leaving me. We started talking regularly, and I discovered she had a background in marketing. When I offered her a job with my company, she jumped at the chance. It was unconventional, hiring my ex-husband's former mistress, but she was talented and motivated. Plus, there was something poetic about the two women Thorn had tried to manipulate, joining forces to build something he could never touch. Our working relationship became a friendship, and eventually, we became partners in a new venture focused on helping women start their own businesses. Rhea and I launched a nonprofit organization called Women Rising, dedicated to helping women escape difficult situations through entrepreneurship. We provided microloans, business mentoring, and emotional support to women who wanted to build their own independence. Our first workshop had 20 participants. Within 6 months, we had a waiting list of over 500 women. The local media covered our launch, and soon we were getting calls from women across the country. We expanded to offer online courses, virtual mentoring, and even a scholarship program for women over 40 who wanted to start their first business. Every success story felt personal to me. Every woman who left an unhappy marriage, every mother who built something of her own, every grandmother who discovered her entrepreneurial spirit, they were all part of my story too. We were proving that it was never too late to start over, never too late to discover your worth. The organization grew beyond anything I had imagined, attracting corporate sponsors and celebrity endorsements. Thorn made one final attempt to insert himself back into my life. He showed up at my office unannounced, looking haggard and desperate. Security called me before letting him up, and I agreed to see him one last time. He sat across from my desk in my beautiful corner office, surrounded by awards and photos from speaking engagements. "I made a mistake," he said quietly. "I was wrong about everything. About you, about us, about what mattered." I listened, without emotion, as he begged for another chance, promised to be different, claimed he had learned his lesson. When he finished, I leaned back in my chair and studied him. This broken man had once made me feel small and worthless. Now he looked like exactly what he was, a mediocre person who had thrown away something precious because he couldn't recognize its value. "Thorn," I said finally, "I forgive you. Not for your sake, but for mine. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You had your chance to support me, to believe in me, to treat me with respect. Instead, you chose to tear me down and cheat on me. I've built something beautiful from the ashes of what you destroyed. There's no place for you in this new life." My business empire continued to expand in ways I had never dreamed possible. I launched a line of high-end jewelry that sold in boutiques across the country. My online courses had enrolled over 10,000 students. The subscription box service had a 6-month waiting list. I wrote a best-selling book called From Lazy to Limitless, A Woman's Guide to Building Her Own Empire. Major corporations started hiring me as a consultant, wanting to understand how I had built such a loyal customer base and authentic brand. I was invited to speak at Harvard Business School, featured on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine, and asked to appear on national television shows. The girl who had been called lazy was now being called a visionary. I moved into a stunning penthouse apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Every morning, I would stand at those windows with my coffee, looking out at the world I had conquered. The view was breathtaking, but not as beautiful as the journey that had brought me there. Today, I stand in my flagship store, watching customers browse the jewelry and home decor that started as a desperate attempt to earn grocery money. My team of 30 employees bustles around, preparing for our biggest sale of the year. Rhea walks up beside me, tablet in hand, showing me the latest sales figures. "We're up 40% from last year," she says with a smile. I nod, but my mind is elsewhere, thinking about the woman I used to be. The woman who believed she was lazy, worthless, nothing more than a housewife whose dreams didn't matter. That woman is gone, replaced by someone who knows her value and refuses to accept anything less than she deserves. My phone buzzes with a notification, another interview request, this time from a major network wanting to feature my story in a documentary about women entrepreneurs. I smile and accept the invitation. My story isn't just about building a business, it's about rebuilding yourself when someone tries to tear you down. It's about discovering that the person who calls you lazy might just be afraid of your potential. And it's about proving that sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming everything they said you could never be.